Keith's team are looking at changes in a particular part of the brain where we register pleasure and trying to work out why two people who are being treated for an addiction can react differently when they see the same cues in the form of pictures associated with that substance. In a lab in the psychology department, Keith's colleagues are putting his theories to the test with the help of a willing human guinea pig.
My full name is Alfred Victor Newton III. I'm half English and half Tennessee hillbilly.
Alfred's agreed to have his brain scanned, but before he does, he wants to go outside for one last puff.
I've been smoking since I was 18, and I'm 73. I did smoke a pack a day, and now I've been stretching them out to 3 days.
And what is it that makes you want one?
It's partly having something in my hand. As soon as I have one or two hits, I don't want it anymore. But I have to have one with my coffee in the morning. I guess you could say it settles me a little.
So I know that coffee is a trigger for you. Are there any other things that you look at?
I don't think so. I don't think those have anything to do with it. I really don't. I think it's just force of habit.
You've had a cigarette, so let's go and put you in an MRI machine.
Okay.
Now if you could just slide up into the scanner as far as you can comfortably. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, your head should be sort of comfortably resting in the divot area. We want to see what brain activity looks like when people who are addicted to smoking cigarettes see pictures of cigarettes. The underlying assumption there is that looking at pictures of cigarettes is activating the same reward circuitry that's activated just before you relapse.
That's Dr. Kelly Hennigan McNiven, who's running the experiment. There are two rooms, one with a giant tube, the MRI, which Alfred lies in. We all sit in a second room where, through a glass window and a monitor, we can see how Alfred is doing and what he's seeing during his test. Kelly puts Alfred in the scanner, where he looks up at a screen showing images of things associated with smoking, like cigarettes, as well as non-cigarette related images, like pens, plants and food. The idea is to compare how Alfred's brain responds when he sees naturally rewarding things like pictures of food, pictures that trigger a cigarette craving, and random photos that shouldn't trigger anything. And that's a salad. And Alfred's going to say whether he wants it. Somewhat does not want. So he's not that bothered about the salad. And donuts next. Does Alfred want a donut? Really wants a donut. Okay, so that's a proper reward for him, and salad isn't.
There's a house plant that comes on, and sometimes people really strongly want that, and sometimes people are like, that's a stupid house plant. It's a dumb house plant.
He's been going for the ones in the middle for cigarettes.
One interesting finding from the study so far is that it doesn't seem like what people say in this task, what people self-report as wanting or not wanting, is very predictive of whether or not they relapse or not.
Okay, so you can look at the images of their brain and you know what they really want. And they're saying, oh, I'm not that bothered, but their brain is saying, I'm really quite bothered, I really want a cigarette.
That's right. Brain activity is predicting better whether or not someone relapses or whether or not they're able to maintain successful recovery compared to what they say in this task, how much they want an image of drugs or how much they want an image of cigarettes.
After Alfred's finished in the brain scanner, Kelly shows me images from other people who've taken part in her study. We sit at the computer screen looking at pictures of cross-sections of a brain taken from 3 different angles.
And there's one brain region in particular that we think is important for this, and that's the VTA, the ventral tegmental area. This is where a lot of the dopamine neurons in the brain are. It's in this really small region within the midbrain or mesencephalon. And that's one of the few regions that we see lit up here in the comparison.
That's that tiny little red section right in the middle of the brain.
Tiny little red section. I was so surprised and happy when we saw this because this is perfectly in line with the hypothesis that dopamine is underlying addiction.
So what's amazing about Kelly's study is that you can see into someone's brain as they're saying, I don't necessarily want a cigarette, and their brain is saying something different.
Just by looking at activity in these brain regions, we could identify people that are at higher risk for continuing nicotine dependence versus those that are just kind of recreational smokers and are maybe able to quit easily.
How can you use that information? I mean, obviously, if pictures of cigarettes are setting people off into wanting one, then I can see how an advertising ban would help.
With this information, you could imagine designing interventions that are specifically targeted to change brain activity in these reward circuit regions. And there are different ways that we're thinking of doing that and that people are trying right now, such as looking at neurofeedback. So that would be where you're actually showing people the magnitude of brain activity within these particular regions and asking them to see if they can control it, if they can modulate it. And you can imagine that if you can learn how to control that in the real world, that might actually translate into being able to control your cravings better.
So that's kind of like physio, but for your brain?
Yeah. It's similar to like biofeedback.
Wow.
Yeah, it's the same concept.
Although in the scanner Alfred is reacting to pictures, in real life smokers respond to particular situations like stresses where a cigarette can help. Breaking that habit means rewiring the brain's responses to those cues and creating new habits to replace smoking. Back at the Zuckerberg Hospital's Stop Smoking group, leader Daryl Kent is providing people with the practical tools they need to help them when they stop. Daryl takes a carrot and stick approach, showing people her famous jar of tar.
This is a thick, gooey, molasses-type tar, basically. And so that's when people quit smoking, they cough up a lot of this sort of phlegm. And, it's kind of gross. It's like black or brown or...
But she also hands out cinnamon sticks.
And they're quite handy because they're kind of the size of a cigarette. You can inhale on them, but it also takes care of having to have something in your hands.
And there are exercises designed to keep their minds occupied.
Not one puff ever.
38% of people who took part in last year's Stop Smoking program in San Francisco quit altogether. And the ones who didn't kick the habit completely cut their daily cigarette intake. The general feeling amongst this year's group is that this kind of therapy gives them the motivation they need to try and give up.
This is a life and death thing for me. Tobacco almost took me out. I had gotten several lung diseases from it. But I'm going to give the devil a black eye because I am going to stop smoking. Yes, because this is a battle.
Yay! Great job.
Even failing to quit is a step towards stopping. Neil Benowitz estimates it normally takes people 7 tries before they quit successfully. Aside from therapy, there are a whole range of products to help give quitting smokers a slower withdrawal from nicotine. There are patches or lozenges. There are also, controversially, e-cigarettes. Vaping, inhaling a man-made nicotine vapour, is a young but growing industry. It's expected to be worth around $30 billion in the next 5 years. Here in the UK, although not so much in the US, it's often recommended as a tool to help people who want to quit, and I wondered if listener Sharif had considered it.
I have tried once e-cigarettes, but I didn't see any point of that. And it didn't seem to me that helpful. I didn't get satisfaction from it maybe, and I just went on smoking real cigarettes.
And that is exactly what its critics are worried about. Also based in San Francisco is Dr. Stanton Glantz. He's the director of the Center for Tobacco Control Research at the University of California, and he's a big cheese in the anti-smoking world.
If you had someone who is a smoker who stopped smoking and switched entirely to e-cigarettes with no other effects, they would be better off. But the problem is that's not what happens. Most of the people who smoke and use e-cigarettes are what are called dual users. They continue smoking and using e-cigarettes at the same time. And there's emerging evidence that that's actually even worse than smoking. The scientific evidence is still coming in. The way it looks to me is that e-cigarettes probably don't cause nearly as much cancer as conventional cigarettes do, but they probably cause about as much heart disease and non-cancer lung disease, which is what actually kills about 2/3 of the smokers. Because the e-cigarettes have a really different toxicologic profile than conventional cigarettes do.
What's in them?
Well, it depends. The really, quote, effective e-cigarettes generate even smaller particles than the conventional cigarettes do, so they get deeper into your lungs. They're much more dangerous. We've shown with looking at cigarette smoke that 1 minute of cigarette smoke exposure basically shuts down normal functioning of your arteries in ways that increases your risk of a heart attack. And we're going to be looking at e-cigarette aerosol, but there's no reason to expect it would be any different.
Dr. Stanton Glantz, a man unconvinced by vaping, but like he says, the jury's still out on how safe it is. Interestingly, authorities in San Francisco have just banned flavoured tobacco products, which are often used in vaping. Their big concern, according to Stanton, being that they're heavily targeted at younger smokers. So back to Sharif and his cigarettes. He wants to know why it's so hard to quit smoking. I've learnt that it's a mixture of physical and psychological effects. That nicotine is hijacking the dopamine pathway in the brain to make smoking a pleasurable thing to do, and that for some people, this turns into a dependence, where the natural dopamine levels drop off and the smoker needs to keep smoking just to maintain normal brain chemistry. So they feel awful when they stop. Smoking becomes part of their daily ritual, and quitting becomes that bit harder as they associate that cup of coffee with needing a cigarette. Then they need to alter their routines and develop new habits to counteract a craving. Scientists are still chipping away at why some people are more susceptible to cigarettes. Yes, it's nature and nurture, so a combination of genetics and environmental factors. The environment seems like the easier one to tackle here. Smoking is fundamentally a social thing. People who grow up in smoking households are more likely to take it up later, and peer pressure is a big factor. That explains the success of support groups like Daryl's. But it also explains why San Francisco has managed to reduce smoking rates from 30 to 11% over 40 years. As we heard at the start of this programme, it's really hard to smoke in the city. Smokers end up feeling like social pariahs, and that pressure makes smoking way less pleasurable. I asked our experts if they had any final advice for Sharif.
Best treatment with nicotine is a combination of patches and either gum or lozenges, so it's dual nicotine. The patch to sort of give you a baseline level of nicotine, and the gum or lozenge when you have an urge to smoke. That, in association with counseling, I think would be great. If those don't work and he's interested in vaping, then I think it's reasonable to try that. If he's going to do that, he needs to use it every day and try to stop smoking as soon as he can.
I think he should just keep trying to quit. I mean, there are things that we know work. Making your home smoke-free, working in a smoke-free workplace make a huge difference. There are approved drugs, nicotine replacements, other more powerful prescription drugs, and those things, if they're used properly, work.
There used to be a school of thought that, you need to build up a lot of motivation and that kind of thing, and that's not really true. Sometimes our motivation follows our behavior, and so throw your cigarettes, soak them in water, throw them in the trash, and make a commitment to stop right now. And you may fail, but keep doing that. The more you make that effort, actually, the more motivated that you'll feel to quit.
So, there you go, Sharif. I hope that helped. Well, that's almost the end for CrowdScience. If you enjoyed our podcast, can I recommend another from the BBC stable? It's called The Inquiry. It's a pressing question examined by 4 expert witnesses. Recent questions include, can we eat our way out of climate change? And is Donald Trump good for journalism? Well worth your eartime. It just remains for me to say goodbye and say, Sharif, I wish you all the best with quitting, and I'll hand it over for you to quit the podcast for us.
That's all for this edition of CrowdScience. Today's question was from me, Sharif Khudayverdiev, in Uzbekistan. The program was presented by Marnie Chesterton and produced by Mareka Peters. CrowdScience needs your questions. You can send them to crowdscience@bbc.co.uk. Thanks for listening.